Sentinel site concept was developed as a way for people to wrap their minds around the fact that we're trying to monitor change in coastal ecosystems. Specifically here at Waquoit, we're really interested in salt marshes. So the idea is to have a dedicated program with consistent protocols that people use all over the country to monitor change related to climate change, and specifically the factor that we're the most interested in that affects the plants the most is sea level rise. The salt marsh and its peat help protect people that own property on the coast and to protect just our uplands and our roadways. We're seeing a decline in flooding sensitive species, which has direct effects on species like the salt marsh sparrow. As vegetation thins and disappears due to excessive flooding by seawater due to sea level rise, it no longer is serving a function of helping to build the marsh and to hold it together. So that peat that the plants create when they die and through their living roots is extremely important for having salt marshes serve that buffering. But also they are helping to remove some of that excess carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and they're banking it in the peat, they're storing it in the peat. The really compelling part of sea level rise, and especially with the thinning and disappearing of the flooding sensitive plants, is that there are other animal species that are dependent on those particular grasses. One of them is the salt marsh sparrow. It's a bird that adapted to have its nestlings hatch and be able to fly between the highest tides of the month. That was a evolutionary response to the species laying its eggs in a place where not many predators could get it because it is occasionally flooded by saltwater. Its population is rapidly declining because the tide is coming up too frequently and the nestlings are drowning in their nest before they are able to fly and get away from the rising water. In most cases here in Waquoit, what we're seeing is the salt marsh is accreting, but it's not keeping pace with sea level rise changes. So the marsh is slowly getting inundated more and more frequently by seawater. I went out in the field recently and was taking data on the third year of an experiment where we put sediment down in plots. The whole technique is referred to as sediment augmentation or thin layer placement. We're finding in our high marsh, our flooding sensitive area, really high species diversity now 3 years after we put this sediment down. It's really exciting to go from an area where we saw the flooding sensitive species thinning and disappearing to 3 years later a beautiful plot that has 9 species of plants that are mostly flooding sensitive. You can make an impact. Try to reduce your environmental footprint. If you live on the coast, don't use fertilizers. If you have coastal property, please don't harden it. Let the natural features persist, because a salt marsh that butts up against a concrete wall has nowhere to go.